Let's start it.
Cinema Classic is sponsored by WCBE 90.5 FM, Columbus, Ohio, and is produced by John DeSando and Mindy Mcfann substituting for Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to shows online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Mindy Mcfann.
And this is Cinema Classics.
Sure enough.
Well, we have something like a classic. I mean, here's why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a current film.
Yes.
And we leave this to its movie time, as
Correct.
you well know, because you're a guest always on that. But it seems to me that there's something really a bit old-fashioned about The Forgiven.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And when we have time, especially in our Back Talk podcast part of this, we'll be able to look at Ray Fiennes and probably Jessica Chastain. I just say Ray Fiennes because we all know Jessica Chastain.
Yes.
She just won the Oscar.
Yep.
But Fiennes is a kind of sleeper.
Yeah.
For me.
He's an interesting guy.
Now he is. So anyway, most of us remember him from being the commandant in Schindler's.
Yes. Unforgettable.
Oh, isn't that so?
Yeah.
What a great shot from the rooftop.
Yes.
Whoa, yeah. All right, so it's The Forgiven. Now, not to be confused with The Unforgiven, which we've had several times.
I know, it's confusing.
But-
Even when you Google it, you come up with 10 other things.
So where's it set, Mindy?
It is set in the Middle East. I can't remember if they say Morocco. That's where it is.
That's correct.
Morocco. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, up in the northern part of Africa,
Middle of nowhere.
right in the very dry Sahara.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have a posh couple.
Yes, and they're not in the city. They're way out in their little vacation home. And posh is a very polite word.
They are annoyingly wealthy.
And decadent and self-centered and yeah. There's a lot of pejoratives I can put on these people.
And it's great. So is Ray Fiennes, who plays the doctor, David, and Jessica Chastain, and her occupation. Do you remember?
I don't even know if she had one, did she? I don't
She
remember.
previously was a child's
author.
Author.
Yes,
right.
yes. She's not doing much at the time. But
Although she does get inspired for some reason.
oh, well, who knows
I know.
why.
I know.
They've been
I
invited
think
to
I
this
know
party
why.
in the desert, yes.
Yes, right. Some kind of a palace in the desert.
Yes, I think they used the Moroccan word for palace. This is what they called it. I guess that's what you call your second home.
Because the zoo,
Yeah.
Azi or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's your pied-à-terre in the
Yes.
in the middle of nowhere.
So two very charming gay guys own it,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a variety of European visitors,
Yes.
and she's an American, but they're there.
Yes,
And
they are.
so every good story, Mindy, has a conflict. What's the conflict here?
Wow. The conflict is they are driving through the desert, and he's drunk, and he's driving really quickly, and there's a couple Moroccan kids who gather, well, you don't know quite exactly what the premise in the beginning is they sell fossils.
Yes.
And so the kid's going to step in front of the car, and you're not quite sure if he's selling a fossil or he's got a gun, so you're thinking
Very
maybe
good.
they're going to rob him. So the kids aren't all innocent in that
Right,
context. But he runs one of them down and kills them.
All right. Not good.
No.
And you can tell the setup with the clash of cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's their inner conflict, Mindy? This couple, this decadent couple.
I think it's partially whether they want to own how horrific they are.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of like this weird guilt after you've taken over a country. Oops, shouldn't have. So it's their conscience or lack thereof, and do they have any?
Well said. Their marriage seems a marriage at this point of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
There's a distance between them in ages. He's 40ish, she's 20, late 20s.
Maybe.
Yeah, and you can tell from the way they talk that they've lost their humorous banter and they're now into bitter banter, even in the car. And as you had pointed out, they were actually arguing when he hit the boy.
Yes. I mean, I think as the movie develops, they use each other.
Yeah.
Whether that's the premise and their marriage started on, or if that's how it's ended.
Yes.
I don't know, but they clearly seem to be just using each other at this point to maintain, I don't know what, the ability to go into the desert to a decadent house.
I know, and there is an obvious clash between the Arabs who are serving them, and their attitude, particularly David's.
Yes.
Although he's drunk most of the time, but it doesn't impair him from his invective against almost all human beings, and particularly non-whites.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I presume when anybody is waiting on you and they speak another language, and they're speaking that language around you, they're not saying flattering things about you 90% of the time.
Yes.
Because, well, let's face it, a lot of, Europeans and Americans can be very unpleasant
Oh, I
in
know.
traveling circumstances.
This does kind of emphasize the ugly American, and let's
Ugly
say
Europeans, too.
Europeans that, yeah, so it's a bit skewered that way.
Yes,
And the Arabs are a bit holier than thou,
yes.
standing like a Greek chorus commenting upon the foolishness of these.
That's why I mean, it is a morality play.
Yes.
But it fits just about anybody.
Yes.
Anybody with power,
Yes.
Power corrupts, absolute power
Yes,
corrupts
yes.
absolutely, and this is really a summation of that, isn't it?
And it's the stranger in a strange land.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we all fear we might look like when we visit somebody else's, particularly a culture, as foreign to us as that, and as dependent as we are on them in other ways. It's a curious conflict between the two. And so as it develops, what bigger conflict appears?
Well, the father shows up of the murdered boy
Yes.
and wants the boy's
very,
body.
Very inconvenient.
And culturally, evidently, you want the person who caused the person's death to come to their funeral or their wake or whatever context that is.
Yes.
And so Ray Fiennes says he will go with them.
Yes.
So he leaves the whatever mansion or whatever they're in, their oasis, and goes with this man into the desert, the father of the murdered boy.
So if you
or
want
the dead boy.
if you want tension, when he agrees to go with them, everybody has to tense up, even in the film.
Yeah.
It's apparent later on that he did not have to go. That Fiennes' character David did not have to go.
Right.
And those of us in the audience, as so schooled as we are in horror films, wanted to shout out, "Don't do that."
Yep. Well, and also, I mean, he's a pig, so, you're kind of wishing something bad's going to happen to him, so you figure if you feel that way, so do the characters in the movie, so it doesn't look like it's going to end well for him.
It does not. I very much like the father, Abdullah.
Yep.
I really like his stone face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of cultural stuff there.
Yes, he has his own surprises waiting for them.
Yes, and how men in that culture are supposed to react to things, how women are supposed to react to things.
It would look like this is Fiennes' movie. He seems to be, but then it shifts a bit, does it not?
Yes, but I still think, he runs through the whole thing.
Yes.
Nobody else is always part of the story.
Well, this gives Jessica Chastain a chance to play like a floozy. And I think she does it very well.
Yes, she does, because she becomes more, you dislike her more as the movie goes on.
Yes.
Her character development is that you start thinking maybe he's just a jerk, and then you go, oh, she's a horrible, horrible woman.
Yes, so she's left on her own with the revelers.
Yes.
And she just joins right in.
Oh, yes, she does.
Hooks up with a handsome bisexual.
American.
Yeah, American. And it goes on from there.
Yeah.
And so the story kind of splits there into the two of them. He way out, her husband way out there nowhere, where he can't even walk out without being watched or suspected that he might be trying to leave.
Well, it's all on the edges. At what point is this going to become involuntary? You have that feeling because at one point they tell him to lock the door because for fear of the women who are mourning the boy.
Right.
And they like keen, their mourning is part of that process. And they tell him to lock the door. The men tell him to lock the door because they don't know what the women are going to do.
What about the cinematography?
It's the desert, so you got a lot going for you there. It's nice. I mean, it's nice, but it's the desert, so, you know.
One recurring shot that I wanted to mention to you because we've talked about them before, the drone shots.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Particularly effective, I thought here, even though you and I are complaining that we're using way too much.
But when they're used correctly, they're wonderful.
Wow, yeah.
They're wonderful, and to understand what I loved about the drone shots is that you have this idea of these people who have control. They have power and control.
I know.
And when you see how they're in the middle of nowhere, you go, where does
love
that
it.
switch?
Yes.
And you have no power and control because somebody just murder you in the middle of the desert. Nobody finds your body.
Yes. And somehow it perversely reminded me of OJ in his white car.
Yeah.
And we had helicopter shots, lots of them for
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
But this one, they're white cars as you'd expect them to be, Land Rover types.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, also the locals have theirs.
Yeah.
And it's a different impression, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
When you see them.
Yes.
And talking about, I guess, your motif, which is the control.
Yeah. It's with the illusion of control is a better way of putting that, I guess.
Yeah. So you have them driving up in the white, and then I think we'll have some shots, real bird's eye shots of them going, and there's never any fear for the locals. But I always am afraid, particularly when David and Joe decide to go at night.
I know, I hated that. The night part freaked me out. Like, why? There's just no way. I mean, what do you do if your car breaks down?
Oh my Lord!
Or you run somebody over, whatever it is. I just can't even. It's just so unfamiliar to me.
And figuratively, you can barely see the road. And these people barely know where they're going. So I like that too. They're lost.
Yes.
And they may think they're in control.
Yeah.
But at any particular point, you might make the wrong turn.
Yep.
And that is profoundly scary.
Yeah. Well, and the table's being flipped from the idea that these poor people in the desert are dependent on Europeans, and not so much.
Oh, Mindy Mcfann, tell me, what would you advise our audience?
Go with the idea that it's going to be real political and you're going to be able to have a long conversation afterwards.